Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth place trophy transfer special podcast. This is your host, Jujex, and in this episode, we're going to be discussing the top 30 transfers in the top five leagues. And with me today, we have Cloud ST. How are you doing, Cloud ST?
I'm doing quite well today. How are you, Sino?
I am fine, thank you. And also with us today is the Barca Show. How are you doing, the Barca Show?
Good, good. How about yourselves?
I'm good, thank you. Before we get to the transfers, let me just say that obviously, other than talking about the transfers themselves, we're gonna each give each transfer two ratings. One is the value for money rating from 1 to 10, 1 making it a low value for that transfer, and 10 making it the absolute perfect transfer. The second rating is a need for the player, which means at the time that the transfer happened, how much did the buying team actually needed that player? All right, without any further ado, let's get to the transfers. On number 30, we have Mario Gomez, who I'm sure you all know who he is. Gomez was sold to Fiorentina from Bayern Munich for a fee of 15.5 million euros. And I think there's a bonus clause in it as well that adds around 4 million to it, but the fee is around 15.5. I'm gonna start with Nabeed. Nabeed, what do you think of this transfer?
Yeah, Mario Gomez to Fiorentina was a pretty interesting deal, considering that they had Giuseppe Rossi beforehand. So I was curious to see how Gomez would fit into Fiorentina, but then they sold Steven Jovic to Manchester City, who is a little higher up in this table. But yeah, if you consider the fact that if you have Giuseppe Rossi and Gomez up front now, you have a pretty formidable attack with these two. So yeah, I think it was a pretty good transfer for the fee too as well. He's a world class finisher and positionally one of the best.
I definitely agree with you. What do you think of this one, Boss Show?
I think it was a great move for them. He's a proven forward, and he's going to guarantee a lot of goals for them. He's already linking up very well with Giuseppe Rossi, and I think a lot of people could have predicted that. Just as long as Rossi stays fit, I think he'll be a great fit for them.
I certainly agree with you guys. I mean, uh, I didn't expect Fiorentina to pull this one off, but they surprised me as well. Let's get to the ratings. For the value for money part, I just gave this 10 out of 10. What about you guys? Nabi?
I give it a 8. I thought the fee, considering Bayern have sold players for less money, could have been negotiated to a little bit of a lower fee. But even then, I thought it was a pretty damn good transfer fee. So yes, I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Hey, any lower for Gomez? I'm a little surprised though.
Well, Bayern have been known to negotiate lower fees, so I'm just through their history, I'm just considering that.
Okay. What about you, Peter?
I think it's a 10 out of 10 for both value and need for the player.
Yeah, Peter's on my side. Yeah, Peter. Yeah, awesome.
Especially considering the transfer market, it's definitely a great value for a proven player.
Definitely. As for the need for the player, well, I've given it a 10 out of 10 too, because even though they had Jovic last year, their top scorer, I think, didn't score more than 10 or 11 goals. So I've given it a 10. Barca Show, what do you think of that?
I gave him a 10 out of 10 as well. Losing Jovic was a big loss for them, but I think they recovered well from that.
What about you, Cloud ST?
I gave it a 9. It's basically what you guys were saying. I think they needed his player, but I'm a little picky with giving 10s out, so I'm just
Okay.
giving it a 9.
And up to the next one. On number 29, we have Kevin Strootman's transfer to the AS Roma. Now, Strootman was sold from PSV Eindhoven to Roma for a fee of 16.5. This one also has some sort of a bonus clause in it as well, but it's still a pretty good deal, I think. What do you guys think of this, Nabi?
I thought Kevin Strootman to Roma was one of the biggest transfers to go through for Roma. I thought this was a steal considering the fact that Manchester United was after Strootman for so many years. And the fact that Manchester United didn't get him and Roma got him, add to the fact that Roma has Daniele De Rossi, Michael Bradley. With Strootman in that midfield, they certainly have one of the best midfields in Serie A.
I can definitely see that as well. Yeah. Barca, what do you think of this?
I think Strootman is a good addition to them. It didn't come at a very steep fee. I think they paid a little bit much for him. I'd say it'd be like a 7 of 10. They do have a pretty strong midfield, and he'll make it stronger. For sure.
I myself given it a 9 out of 10 since Strootman, he was Netherlands captain at some point, and with his age and potential, I think he's going to be a great player. What do you think of this, Nabi?
I also, for the value, I gave it a 9. I thought it was a great deal for Roma. The obviously they didn't hesitate to cash in with the Lamela deal, and they got a very good player with world class potential. So yes, nines definitely for me.
When it comes to the need for the player, as you mentioned, Nabi, I've given it an 8, but he is a defensive midfielder, but if you check the Roma stats from last year, they still needed a lot of tightening at the back and midfield area. So I've given him an 8.
Yeah. I gave him a 10. This deal for Roma, they really needed him. Last season, as you mentioned, they were very attacking, and they needed someone to shore up the midfield a little bit. De Rossi was kind of left stranded sometimes, and having Strootman as a second choice like that, I mean, it's perfect if you ask me. And the way he makes darting runs from midfield, I think this deserves a 10 out of 10. This is a perfect transfer for Roma.
Even better. What about you, Barca?
I agree pretty much everything Nabeed said, but I just want to add that there's a lot of uncertainty going around with De Rossi right now, and having him there doesn't really hurt them at all. If De Rossi goes, it's not a huge... It's still a big loss, but it's not as big as before.
So you've given him a 10 as well?
I've given him 8.
8, okay. Yeah, all in all, pretty good deal. The next one, on number 28, we have Luis Gustavo, who was sold from Bayern to Wolfsburg in a bit of a surprising deal for 17.5 million. I'm going to go to Nabeed on this one since he was linked to Arsenal. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, Gustavo to Wolfsburg is a really good deal for Gustavo in himself, because Gustavo needed to move from Bayern to actually see, so people could see how good he really is. I think he wasn't appreciated enough at Wolfsburg. Obviously, he snubbed Arsenal to go to Wolfsburg, but Wolfsburg are paying him massive wages to get him. So it wasn't. I guess it was a 50-50 kind of deal, but for the fee they got him, it was a good deal.
What do you think, Barca?
I thought it was a great deal for Wolfsburg. I think Luis Gustavo was a pretty integral part of Bayern Munich last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been playing well for Brazil. I think getting him for, what did you say,
17.5 million euros, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a great deal. I'd love Barca to do that, but if we weren't so stacked in the midfield position, that's a little bit more expensive than Song, and he's a lot better than Song is.
I checked Wolfsburg's stats from last year and their defensive midfield position, since they were linked to a Juventus player, a certain player that I'm not going to talk about now, and they definitely needed a player, a player of his quality. I've given the need for the player 10 out of 10, and the value 8.5. Since, I mean, if Gomez is 15.5, I don't think Gustavo can be higher than that. What do you think about that, Barca?
I give him 10 just because he's a great player. We'll talk about him later, but Thiago Alcantara, he went for 25 million, and I think Gustavo is... I probably would rate him as a better player right now, anyways.
That is a big compliment coming from a Barca fan. And what about you, Cloudesty?
I gave the value for Gustavo as an 8.5, but the need for a player, I gave it a 7. I thought Wolfsburg needed a defender to be honest. I thought defensively they were kind of shaky most of the season last season, and they really needed a leader in the defensive side, and they didn't really get that. So I think they really needed a center back more, and possibly a striker, because Bastos really was inconsistent. So yeah, those two were a little more important than what Gustavo had. I mean, it's good to have Gustavo, but just needed a striker more, I think.
On number 27, we have the guy who was the record for the English transfer of all time, I think, Andy Carroll. Now, Andy was sold to, I'm calling him Andy now. Carroll was sold to West Ham from Liverpool for a fee of 17.5 million euros. I think it was around half of what Liverpool paid for him. Anyway, what do you guys think of this?
Andy Carroll. This was kind of a shock deal for me because technically speaking, I'm surprised that West Ham were paid that much to get him. But they really needed him because he played amazing for for West Ham last season. I think he was their top scorer, or I think he was very good. I remember he was an integral part of West Ham's attack. So Sam Allardyce really did good to seal this one up because there wasn't very many options that can play Allardyce's style like Carroll could. Yeah.
All right. What about you, Barca?
I thought that the price that Liverpool paid was overpriced, and I still think that the price that they paid for Carroll this window was overpriced. I don't think he's worth that much.
I kind of agree with you. For the value, I've given it a 7 out of 10. I mean, anything lower for a player of his age and an English player that he was kind of good when he was at Newcastle, so I don't think you can go any lower than that.
I gave him a 6, and I still think it's a little too much. The English premium is very high on this one.
I gave it a 7. Basically, you guys summed up what I was about to. Yeah, it was.
As for how much West Ham needed him, I've given it a 9.
I gave it also a 9. West Ham really needed Carroll because he is an integral part of their attack.
And Barca show.
For need, yeah, I'd give him about a 9 as well. Despite being overpriced, he is a pretty good player. Like, his profile is his size, and you don't really get much bigger than Andy Carroll.
So we pretty much agree on this one. Okay, now to the next one. On 26, we have Paulinho, the Brazilian box-to-box magician, I'm going to call him, who was sold from Corinthians, I believe, to Tottenham Hotspurs for a fee of 20 million euros. Now, Barca show, what do you think of this transfer?
I thought it was a pretty good transfer. He came off a great Confederations Cup. 20 million, I guess, is a little overpriced, but I'd still consider it pretty good value, considering how a lot of prices inflate after international competitions. I gave it a 10, and I gave it an 8 for need because I feel Spurs really needed that kind of midfield backbone, which they haven't really had since Modric left.
All right, what about Tsunami? What do you think of this?
You know what? Paulinho had a fantastic Confederations Cup, and considering that Tottenham bought Capoue and they also have Sandro, the fact that they have these 3 players now is they probably have one of the best defensive midfields in the EPL. But Paulinho, I'm not too sure he's going to do well in his first season. He may do well overall, but in his first season, I'm still not sure how he'll do, how he'll respond to Capoue and Sandro. But I gave it a value for, despite the 20 million price, I gave it a 9. And the need for a player, obviously, I gave it an 8. He's going to be competing with Sandro and possibly Capoue, but Capoue's out right now, so Sandro, he and him.
I think I agree with you guys overall. I've also given it a 9 for value. I've seen him play, and he's a remarkable player. But for the need for the player, I've given it 6 because I see a lot of similarities between him and Dembele, the type of box-to-box midfielders that they are. But still, he's a great player. It doesn't mean that Spurs shouldn't have bought him. Now to the next one. On 25, we have Jeffrey Kondogbia, who was sold from Sevilla to Monaco, I believe, for a fee of 20 million again. Now, for this one, I'm going to go to Nabi since he's the League One expert here. Nabi, what do you think of this?
Yeah, look, Monaco spent a ton of money this year. Obviously, Dmitry Rabinov really wanted to make a statement that he is going to be the next Chelsea of Europe. So he started off with obviously the other transfers will be mentioned later on, but Kondogbia is the transfer they really needed because they needed to shore up their defensive midfield. This was especially needed because they let Navas Mendy go this season, and he went to Nice on free. So yes, Kondogbia is definitely something that they needed, and Kondogbia will shine in Liga for sure.
Okay, so for the value you've given it,
I given an 8, and need for player also an 8. They really needed Kondogbia.
all right. What about you, Peter?
Well, first off, I want to mention that he's like 20, 21. So I rated him pretty low. I rated him at a 6. He had one good season, and even in that season, he did play a lot of games, but he got subbed off lots, and I think he made a couple of sub appearances. So he's not quite there yet. He's not quite proven. So it's still a pretty big gamble with him. But as far as like player wise,
Need wise, yeah.
yeah, I think that Monaco did well to get him. I think he was a good target for them. Something where they can build their midfield spine around.
All right. I've also given it a 6.5 out of 10 for the value, but I still think it's a bit too high for as Peter mentioned, for a young player who's just been there for a year. As for the need, I've given it a 7, although I'm sure Nabil would know more about this and Monaco, so I'm going to take his word on this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that the reason why I put the value so high is because Kondogbia has a lot of potential, and Monaco played for the potential. So he did well in La Liga. I mean, he had a fantastic game against Real Madrid. He was a little bit inconsistent, but at Liga he can really develop because he's in France now, and this is where his home is. Basically, so.
Obviously,
Yeah.
and lots of casinos and beautiful women around in Monaco, so he's going to
And
be
no
fine.
taxes.
Don't worry.
And
No
no
taxes.
taxes.
Yeah, obviously. We would know about that. On 24, we have Jesus Navas, or or Jesus Navas, as the Spanish would call him. Navas obviously was, again, he was sold from Sevilla to Manchester City for a fee of 20 million euros, which seems pretty good to me. I'm going to go to Peter on this one. What do you think of this, Peter?
I'm kind of on the defense about him. He's still 27, but his stats and his performances are kind of on the decline. I'm not sure if that's because he needed new atmosphere or anything, or if he's really on the decline. For value, I had him at 7 million, or at a 7.
Okay. Well, I've given it a 9. As you know, he's a regular Spanish on the Spanish national team, and I think he's been doing well at Manchester City. Off the bench, still, Spanish bench is expensive, my friend. It's the Spanish bench. You got to be careful with that. As for need for the player, I'm gonna go with Nabi. To Nabi. What do you think of that?
Need? You know what? Man City, they maybe needed him. I'm not sure what Manuel Pellegrini has planned for Navas. Sorry, not Negredo. Navas, he's coming off a bad season, like Peter mentioned. I don't know how he's gonna do in the EPL, and so far I'm not impressed with what he's done. I also gave it a 7. I just think they have. At the moment, just Milner looks a little better than him, and we're talking about James Milner here, so it's not looking too good.
I've given it an 8 because, as you mentioned, the options that they have on the right now, it's pretty much Milner and or nobody else. So
Nasri
if he
too, so.
Nasri on the right, maybe I don't know. He seems more like a cam or a left winger to me, but still, Peter, what do you think of the need for the player?
If you're comparing him to Milner, then you'd have to give him a 10, right? because Milner is absolutely terrible.
Milner is terrible.
But
but
yeah, I gave him a 10 because Man City don't have any kind of winger, and they do like attacking from the fullbacks too with Zabaleta, and Navas is gonna run up and down, and he's gonna help him out, and he's gonna stick to the wings, which they don't really have. They have a lot of great forwards, but they don't have any wingers except for Milner, and I don't really rate Milner.
I don't think anyone rates Milner.
A lot of love for Milner here. Okay. On number 23, we have Mamadou Sakho, who was sold from PSG to Liverpool on the deadline day, I think, for 21 million. Now, he was on his last year of contract, and 21 seems a little high for me. What do you think of this, Barca?
I think they paid way too much for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably the second most overflated center back in the window. I think Liverpool needed another center back. I don't think it was a extreme need, but I think it was a need. It was on their checklist. But the kind of player that Sakho was, he did pretty well before they got rich, and he's been kind of featuring for them, but he's been kind of a fringe player for them, and paying 21 million for a fringe player isn't really what I'd want to do.
Yeah, what do you think, Nabeed, since you know a lot about PSG?
Okay, the thing with Sakho was that he was already having problems with the management with Ancelotti. When he was paired with I believe Lugano, he did not do well. When he was paired with Alex, he did not do well. When he was paired with Thiago Silva, he did absolutely horrible. So PSG had no choice but to sell him because Laurent Blanc did not get along with Sakho. But the thing is, Sakho wanted to stay. He said that he wanted to stay, and the PSG owners wanted to keep him as well because they thought he was an academy player and they wanted to keep him. But eventually, Liverpool paid over the odds and paid him. I also believe that this was an over the odds kind of a transfer, but he has potential. He's only, I believe, 22. So I for the value, I gave it a 7. I'm being a little generous here. I was kind of bordering on a 6, but I gave it a 7. So
I've given it a 6.5 just because of it being on his last year contract. But I mean, you got to remember that this was a deadline day and prices go up 20, 30, and even more than that, 20, 30% or more. As for the need for the player, since Martin Skrtel was being linked with Napoli and other clubs, I think they should have gone for a defender to make sure that they have a high quality defender. What do you think about what is your ratings, Peter?
Oh, my ratings? I forgot about those. I gave him a 5 for value, like you said, last year on his contract, and I think they could have gone him for cheaper because, as you guys said, he wasn't really wanted.
Yeah, but you got to remember it was practically on the last day, so you got to overspend a little. But they did overspend, I believe. So, and what about the need for the player?
Well, first off, if you spend on the last day, you're still spending that money that you could have used someone else 10 days ago, right? It's still money wasted. Yeah. So I don't think the fact that it was done on the deadline day should really take away from the value that we're talking about.
Yeah, it I mean, yeah, I guess we're just disagreeing on a little.
Yeah.
A little here.
Yeah.
I think what the thing that is though, Peter, is that Liverpool wanted to get the deal done, and after PSG named their price, Liverpool like, okay, done. That's basically what happened. They just didn't want to wait anymore. They didn't want to negotiate or anything. That's just how Liverpool operates. I mean, look at the Andy Carroll deal. So.
That is true. I'm just saying that they overpaid for him by quite a bit.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that one. On number 22, we have Andre Schürrle. I think I practiced that one a lot. And Schürrle was sold from Bayer Leverkusen to Chelsea for 25 million euros. Now, I'm going to go to Cloud ST, since Chelsea are his neighbors. They are his neighbors. What do you think of this transfer, Navi?
I think this is a horrible transfer for Schürrle, because he's competing with Eden Hazard, and he's competing with Mata and Oscar, and he's also competing with Kevin De Bruyne, too.
And Moses when he was there.
Yeah.
Willian, yeah.
Willian too. Willian's there now too.
Well, to be fair, this happened before Willian, so we'll get to that.
Yeah, this happened before Willian, but even then he was competing with Mazakar. So how the hell did he expect to get into the squad, considering he was a regular at Leverkusen? He's not going to be a regular. He started, I believe, the last weekend. But does he seriously think he's going to get ahead of Mazakar once Mata starts getting back into the lineup? I highly doubt it. I have no idea why Chelsea paid that much for Schürrle, because he was declining as a player anyways. His stats were going down. His play was going down. He wasn't tracking back. His only significant was that he would interchange fantastically with Kiesling. But apart from that, this transfer is kind of confusing to me. It's a bad deal overall. I give, by the way, before we move on, I give the value for 5 and need for player 4.
5 and 4. A lot of love for Schürrle. What do you think? What do you think about this, Peter?
For value wise, I think it wasn't too bad. I'd give it a 7 for the value wise. For the need though, I rate it pretty low. I rate it at like a 3. I don't think that he is going to get a starting place from Brangelina.
Exactly.
Yeah, those players are a lot better. Oscar, Mata, Hazard.
I definitely agree with you guys myself. I've given it a 4 for the need for the player. I mean, maybe Jose might use him as a center forward. Who knows? But now that they have Eto'o, I don't think that's going to happen a lot. As for the value, I've given it 7.5. I think 20 would have been fair for a player of his age and quality. On number 21, we have Negredo, finally, Nabeed. You can talk about Negredo now. Alvaro Negredo was sold from Sevilla to Manchester City for a fee of 25 million euros. Now, go ahead, Nabeed.
Yeah, Alvaro Negredo, what can I say? He had the most clear-cut missed chances in La Liga last season, which is hilarious considering that and Manchester City wanted to buy him. So, even this season, he's had a couple of pretty funny misses. I don't know what exactly, considering Soldado was available, I don't know why City ended up getting Negredo, but okay, I guess Zeko and Negredo could work out to be a pretty formidable pairing. But, I mean, for the value, I'm sure they could have gotten Soldado for sure. Just paid 5 million more. And you have Soldado, and you have one.
But by pairing, you mean that one is going to be a great backup to the other, right? Because
Pellegrini plays 4-4-2, so he plays with 2 strikers, and usually it's
so
Aguero.
So where would Aguero play then?
It would be Aguero and Negredo, or Zeko and Aguero. So it's either or. So yeah, I don't know. This is a weird transfer for me, considering that Negredo. They were supposed to get a good finisher, which was a problem last season, but no, they get Negredo, who missed the most clear-cut chances.
Okay, I'm going to go to our La Liga expert now. What do you think, Peter?
I'd rate him about a 7 in value. He's a good player. He's not a great player. He's on the fringe of the Spanish national team.
On the fringes, he sure is. I agree with you. I mean, with the number of goals that he scored, if you score that many goals, the premium is going to go higher. So I've given it a 7.5. But as for need, I've given it a 5. With Aguero and all the other options, Silva and Nasri playing there too, I really think that either him or Dzeko are going to play. So I've given it a 5. What about you, Peter? What have you given this?
I've given him a 4. I don't think Man City needed another striker.
Even better, 4. What and Nabeed, did you give it already? I forgot.
No, I didn't. I gave the value of 5.
Whoa!
Considering Soldado was available.
So you're basically saying
Soldado
that Negredo is a 12.5 million player. That's a bit harsh.
pretty
man.
much
Come on.
for the misses that he had, like some of the
Well,
worst
how many goals
misses
did he score? Did he score around 20 or more?
He scored more than 20, yeah. But
Come on,
come on,
if
he-
you
he
score
missed
20
so
goals, you
many-
gotta be
he
worth
missed
more than
so
12 and a
many
half
chances.
million.
He should be a 35 goal scorer if he got all those good minutes. Those were clear cut chances he missed.
35.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on. Come on. If you're gonna get so many chances, you have to at least put in some of them. No, he missed like most of them.
I definitely know a thing or two about missing chances since I'm a Juventus fan. Trust me, man. Still,
Well,
he scored 20
I-
goals. We barely get 10, so...
Yeah, I put the need for a player though as a 7 because they did lose Carlos Tevez. So yeah, they did need to replace him somehow.
We're not going to be talking about Tevez, so okay. Well, okay, to number 20. On number 20, we have Thiago Alcantara. Now, I think Thiago's transfer saga was one of the most exciting in the summer. United fans are not going to like this, but anyway, he was sold to Bayern from Barcelona for a fee of 25 million euros. Now, Peter, what do you think of your former young magician going to Bayern?
Well, first off, I don't think he really had a spot in Bayern Munich. If he didn't go to Bayern Munich, they'd still have Luis Gustavo, who, as I said earlier, I think he's a better player right now. I think Thiago has a much better potential and probably is a bit more attacking than Luis Gustavo, but they still can kind of play the same role, and I think balance is more important than attacking threat.
Okay.
For value, I have him at about a 9. I think that's about the right price for a player.
For value, I've given it an 8 because, I mean, he did have an 18 million buyout clause, didn't he?
Yeah, but Bayern Munich negotiated with Barcelona, and they raised it to 25 million just to keep everything friendly between the two. And
Yeah, they're
Bayern
pretty
were happy
generous.
to pay, and I don't think Pep was worried at all. Pep doesn't like to hurt Barcelona.
What do you think of this, Nabi?
Yeah, I thought the deal was a little confusing considering that Bayern have so many good midfielders like Toni Kroos. Peter said, Gustavo was a little better considering that Pep plays him as a defensive in that deep lying role. They also have like Javi Martinez and stuff, but for the value, I have to say, if you're gonna go for a player and with Thiago's potential, you'd have to say that Bayern did a good job in trying to wrap this one up. But I don't think Thiago's going to get automatic entrance into that midfield especially once everyone gets fit. Obviously, he's injured right now, but especially when Javi Martinez is fit.
So for value, you've given him a...
I've given it like an 8, yeah. But need for player, I gave it a 2. I don't really think they needed Thiago. This was more like a...
Yeah, I've also given it a 2. I mean, everybody knows the midfield that Bayern has.
The move actually deserves like a negative 20, but
Negative 20.
I think 1 was the minimum, so I give him the minimum at 1.
1. Okay, 2-1. I definitely agree with you guys. I mean, especially since Pep came out and says Thiago was the one that I wanted, especially with players like Kroos and Götze coming in. I was surprised too. Now to the next one. On number 19, we have João Moutinho to Monaco from Porto for a fee of 25 million euros. Now, since this is Monaco again, I'm going to go to our Monaco expert, Cloud SC. Cloud SC, what do you think of this?
You know what? Monaco needed a lot of overhaul in midfield, and they got one of the best one of the best in Portugal, especially midfielders creatively in Moutinho. This is a good deal. I mean, I can't argue with the value. I believe that Porto negotiated so that the Moutinho fee would be a little lower. I mean, I believe this is just a show, but I believe they negotiated so that Sporting would only receive like 2 million in return sale fee. So Porto were smart in doing the deal, but for the fee and his potential player of his class, I'd give it an 8 for value. And Monaco needed the player, so I also gave it an 8.
All right. What about you, Barca Show?
I gave him a 7 in value, and then I gave him a 9 in need. 7 in value for pretty much everything that Naveed said.
Okay, I was a little generous. I've given it a 10 for value. A box-to-box creative midfielder of his quality with Champions League experience, and he shined in Euros too, so it's good. It's not easy to find a player that quality for that fee. I've given it a 10, and for the need, obviously, Monaco can use all the top quality players that they can, so I've given it a 9. Now to the next one. On number 18, we have a transfer that bothered me a little, and also some other Juventus fans, but still we can't do anything about it because we couldn't spend that much. And that transfer
it bothered
is
Arsenal fans too.
Well, you got you got a certain Mr. Someone who we're gonna get to, and this guy we're talking about is Stefan Jovic, who was sold from Fiorentina to Manchester City for 26 million euros plus 3 or 4 million bonuses, I think. Claudius, begin. What do you think of this?
Jovic was originally linked with Arsenal. It looked like he was going to go to Arsenal or Juventus.
It never looked like he was going to go to Arsenal. He said that he wanted to go to Juventus. Okay, carry on.
Well, it was between. I thought it was between the two of us, but then City came in and they just basically took the player. A player who's playing in the reserves right now, I think. So I don't know what Jovic was thinking. Obviously, it might turn out to be a pretty good transfer in the future. But yeah, Jovic has a lot of good potential in him. He might turn out to be the Tevez replacement that was alluding to earlier. But it kind of begs the question, why was Negredo brought in? Yeah, but Jovic has yet to start for City, so it'll be interesting to see how he adapts to the league. I think once he adapts, he'll be one of the best, though.
I agree. I mean, I knew when City comes for a player, then I know we don't stand a chance. So, and they did come for him eventually. Barca, what do you think of this?
I think that City did pretty well getting him for that price, the 26 million. I think the way that Fiorentina has been spending, they could have held on to him. And
I gotta say that Jovic wanted to go though, and he had a 30 million buyout clause in his contract, so they couldn't really hang on to him. Okay, and as for the value, what do you guys think of his value?
I thought for the value, I gave it a 9. So, to be honest, I really
me
think
too.
that was a fantastic deal. For 26 million, I mean, as I think you said, there was a 30 million buyout, so they negotiated less too. For Jovic's potential, I mean, that's amazing.
And especially a player of his kind is rare these days. He is tall, strong, and yet fast and agile, and he can play anywhere up front. He can be a center forward, a cam, a left winger. Although I don't think his best position is on the left wing, and that's where City been using him. But still, I've given a 9 also. Peter, what do you think about value?
For value, I gave him an 8.
Okay. Carry on.
Okay.
No, I think Peter kind of summed it up, though, if you think about it. He did kind of sum up why his value was at 8, so yeah, I don't think there's much to elaborate.
But when it comes to how much City need him, I've given it a 4. Especially
4? Whoa! I gotta disagree with you there. I give it. Yes, they do have like Aguero and stuff, but after Aguero gets injured, who do they have? They needed someone.
They have Negredo, Dzeko, Silva,
no,
and
but
Asri.
they don't have someone like a second striker like Jovic. So they needed a backup to Aguero.
But I mean, you
Perfect
said
backup
they
to
play
Aguero.
4-4-2, but in the first 2 games, didn't they play 4-2-3-1?
Did they? I'm trying to remember.
I thought they did, and in that setup, I've given it 4 because of that setup. If they're playing with 2 strikers up front, then definitely he's 7 or 8. But with the players that they already have, I've given it 4. So yeah, maybe I'm pissed that
I
he
guess
just.
we'll base it on formation though. So
Also,
I give it a
agree, yeah.
7. So I give it a 7. So
Peter,
I
what do
give
you
him a
think?
5. I thought that City have a lot of attacking options, like Aguero. They had Did they sell Tevez before they bought Jovic?
Yeah,
yeah, they sold Tevez. Yeah.
yeah. Unfortunately, they sold him first to us.
Okay. And they also have that one player, the Swedish player.
Guidetti.
Guidetti.
Oh, Guidetti's never gonna break into the squad. Let's be honest here.
Well, you never know if you don't give them a try, right?
You really think that they're gonna?
Well, it's not
But,
helping their financial fair play status by buying all these players for plus 20 million just for them to sit on the bench, right?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, on number 17 we have Henrik Mkhitaryan, who was sold from Shakhtar Donetsk to Dortmund for a fee of 27.5 million. Now, Peter, what do you think of Mkhitaryan's sale?
So far, well, to be honest, I didn't know much about him before that. I know he was doing extremely well for Armenia, I think, or was it Albania? One of the two.
Armenia.
Armenia.
And yeah, he's been doing really well for them. I think he contributes pretty much like to all their goals. So he was a great buy, and he was doing well in Shakhtar Donetsk when looking at his stats in that. I think that
So
Dortmund got a great
for
player out of
value,
him.
you give him
I'd give him a 9, 25 million for a playmaker like him. He's already been showing his class. He's a great player, yeah.
I've given him a 9. I mean, I watched him play against us in the Champions League. He was really impressive, and I think he was their top scorer in Ukrainian league with 20 something goals as well. And since they sold Götze, they definitely needed a player of his quality. What do you think, Nami?
Look, I watched Mkhitaryan play in Ukraine, so I've actually had a very ample opportunity to watch him. And you know what? I think this was one of the best deals struck, apart from Ozil, for Dortmund. He is possibly one of the most underrated attacking midfielders in the world. He has goal scoring ability along with playmaking ability, and I gave need for player obviously and value for money a 10 out of 10 for both.
10 out of 10 both. Okay.
Yeah.
For need, I've given it a 10 also. 9, 10. It's basically the same numbers. What have you given it for the need, Peter?
I gave him a 9 because losing Götze was a huge hit, but bringing him in was a great buy for them.
We pretty much agree that this was a really good deal for Dortmund. On number 16, we have Eric Lamela. Now, Lamela was sold on no, it wasn't the deadline there.
No, it wasn't
Sorry,
deadline
guys.
there.
It was before that. Yeah, from Roma to Tottenham Hotspurs for a fee of 30 million euros plus 5.
God.
Oh God, I definitely know the feeling, man. Plus 5 million in bonuses. Nabeed, carry on.
Yeah, look, Tottenham wanted to replace Gareth Bale, and they wanted to replace him with the best possible player with the best possible potential, and that is Eric Lamela. I mean, how many goals did this kid score last year in Serie A? He was fantastic. He was amazing, and he's got this attitude to win. And you know what? With Tottenham, he's just gonna make that squad an amazing squad. That's all I'll say. I give it an 8 for value and 8 for need for player too. I'll possibly bump that up to a 9 too, actually.
Okay, bump it up because mine is 9 too.
Okay, I'll bump it up.
I watched him a lot in Serie A last year. He's exactly what they needed to replace Bale. He is probably the best dribbler out of all the wingers in Serie A last year. He can score free kicks, long shots. He can get into the box. He has that striker instinct, and he's only 20, 21, so it's probably the best deal that they could have got for a right winger. Sorry, Peter, what do you think?
I gave him an 8 in value. Pretty much what you guys said. He has great potential. I like him. Like, I'll compare him to Cristiano Ronaldo. I think they both carry a lot of the same tools. He's not he's not your typical Argentine winger. He likes to cut in. He can go long.
I like
outside.
that. A typical Argentine, very small.
That's what she said.
Ah.
Sorry. But yeah, I think that they did really well to replace Bale with Lamela. He'll fit in with the EPL pretty well once he gets his dribbling boots on. And just the only thing that I see wrong is the weather in England, which I heard was absolutely terrible.
But he's gonna be living in London, and he's gonna be fine. I hear it's pretty good there for
Yeah, but will
young
he
guys like
survive
him.
those long rainy nights in
Stoke
the
City.
Britannia?
The London girls will take care of him.
Well. Now it's gone to Birmingham in Aston Villa. So
Birmingham, no. Okay, with that, we're going to be wrapping up the first part of the transfer podcast. Thank you guys for listening. And in the second part, we're going to be reviewing number 15 to